Hello, and welcome to the Brand Hunch podcast, where we explore ideas and hunches around how marketers are growing great brands. It's a look under the hood at how much is marketing science and how much is built on a hunch. In today's episode, I'm joined by Natalie Placko. Natalie is the Global Brand Director at Intrepid Travel. Intrepid is a small group adventure business. Think immersive experiences, small group of 12 to 14 people, and a great local leader. It's travel that respects local people and places. Natalie's been at Intrepid for nearly 9 years in her most recent stint, but was with the business for 7 years previously. In her time back with the business, she now sits on the global leadership team and has helped lead Intrepid to 4 consecutive years of record top and bottom line growth. It's really exciting to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a bit about your career to date. I know you've had both brand side and agency side experience. Tell me a bit about where you came from.
Yeah, I came from a totally different university degree, which was back many moons ago, and it was in fine arts. I think I thought I was going to be like an artist and then got to uni and realised that was not my calling. And actually, I went on a gap year and I found my calling. So I travelled for a year and then, like many Aussies, came home and thought, God, what am I going to do with myself? And ended up working as a travel agent to begin with, and then found, I guess, maybe what I call my first true love, which was Intrepid Travel.
So you came back from a gap year. I'm assuming at some point, did you study marketing? How did you sort of ladder into marketing?
So then I started at Intrepid and I worked in sales. We were a really small business back then. From memory, there were like 30 or 40 of us. Now there's over 3,500 around the world. So back then I worked in sales. We were a small business, and so we really had huge opportunities, and I'm really grateful for that initial time where I was lucky enough to progress into sort of sales and marketing roles. I then went back and studied marketing while I was working full time. And I think actually for me that was amazing because I got the benefit of working in real time or using those learnings in real time. And so it just felt like a really great anchoring of both my, I guess, personal passion, my professional career, and then my learning as well, and my continued learning on the job.
And what do you think your sort of first few years in sales taught you then, or did it give you sort of a leg up at all from a marketing perspective?
Absolutely. And I actually think all great marketers should either have worked in sales or at least have a real sort of interest and, I guess, opportunity to lean into sales in their organizations. For us, we've always been, and I think we'll always continue to be, a really sales-led business. And that was integral, not only learning about the product and obviously learning about the business, but really that commercial acumen is so important in marketing because the two totally feed each other. Marketing feeds sales, sales feeds marketing. The two just work beautifully together if you get it right. And so having that knowledge or having that experience has absolutely paved the way for me, especially in this organisation and other organisations as well.
I believe between your stints at Intrepid, you went and worked in some other places, one of those being PR agency side. What do you think that sort of layered on, or what did that chapter mark for you in your sort of broader marketing career?
Yeah, I mean, it was really amazing. I'm really fortunate that I had that opportunity. I think I was a bit old though to work in agency. I was a new mum. I was really passionate about working in an agency, and I kind of left it for a really long time. And so when I got given the opportunity, I jumped at it. I wish I'd done it earlier. I think, and some of the best people I've worked with and had in my teams have worked in an agency in the beginning of their careers. And I would give that recommendation or advice to any young marketer to go and work in an agency first. It's really hard, but it really teaches you invaluable skills. You build such a great network, and you really learn about clients without being on client side. This experience for me was really great. PR is hard and specialization is hard. I'd always said that I was like a generalist marketer. You know, I still say I'm a generalist marketer. I'm actually not really that good at anything. I just kind of know a lot about a lot of things, or know a little about a lot of things. And what I learned in particular in PR is just, and in this agency in particular, is it was all about the obsession around being a PR professional. It didn't really matter what the product was. And the team that I worked with were really impressive. They just did the same thing really well over and over and over again. So a great learning. Yeah, definitely my advice for others. I wish I'd done it earlier.
Yeah, amazing. Tell me a bit. So this more recent stint that you came back to the business, I think you went from sort of a AUNZ sort of marketing role into a global role. What have been the changes there? What's the sort of, is it a pace change, or how have you found it?
Yeah, it's a really big change. Intrepid's quite an interesting organisation in that we are very global, but we have regional offices or regional teams around the world, and in particular, three core regional sales and marketing teams. One in Toronto, one in London, and obviously one here in Melbourne, which is our head office. So, and over the sort of journey of Intrepid, 36 years, we're turning 36 this year, we've gone from very regional or very global to begin with, very regional, and then we're kind of somewhere in the middle now. And so this stint since just before the pandemic or kind of 2018, I've been in this global role. It was a very small global, in fact, I was the first person in the global brand team. Fast forward to today, we're sitting at around 50 scattered all over the world. The business has obviously changed organically and in many ways over that time. But yeah, I was one person in the global brand team. So we really started to work out what was global brand. In fact, back then, we didn't do global brand. We didn't actually do brand. So from 2018, before 2018, and even I'd say before 2020, 2021, during the pandemic, we didn't really do brand. We did a lot of good tactical marketing, destination marketing, but what we know now as brand marketing, we just didn't do it. So there's been huge changes, not only in the organizational structure, but also in just the approach from a brand perspective in how we market and how we put the brand out there. So it's been great.
So the pandemic hit, travel, came to a grinding halt. Tell me a bit about how that felt and what you did from there.
Yeah. It was like something we would never have dreamed of. I mean, no one would have dreamt of it. I think for travel, it was really life changing and business changing because it was the first time in our history that we had to stop all operations.
Mm.
So we had never stopped operations. Yes, there were some countries where, we kind of had to, for different reasons, pull out of or kind of go back into, but we'd never stopped operations. So for a travel operator, to not operate was really epic. It was a really epic moment. It was also a really awful time for a business that has to sadly say goodbye to a huge part of their workforce for no fault of theirs. And then we went into skeleton mode, we went into survival mode. But we knew that we also were going to make it. We'd been well financed or well managed from a financial perspective business by our CEO. So we knew that we had reserves in the bank and that we would be able to not only look after our customers, look after some of our people, and as many as we could keep, we did, and that we would really look at how we built back better into the future. And so what do you do when you don't operate? Trips is that you try to think about what does the future look like from an operational perspective and how do we come back better? But you talk about brand. And so we had this really great moment and we knew that it was really one moment we could lean into, which was talk about the brand, because we couldn't talk about the destinations. We couldn't talk about running trips. We couldn't talk about customers because we didn't have any customers. And so we talked about the brand. And so I think we really found ourselves during the pandemic. And we were lucky enough, which would not have happened in many organizations, is that prior to the pandemic, we'd started what was going to be a total rebrand. And luckily for us, we continued that project. And the objective of the brand refresh was how do we anchor our product and our purpose more closely in a way that was more engaging for our customers.
Give me a really quick overview of what somebody can expect when they engage in an Intrepid tour, and where does the heart component of it come from? I know
Yeah.
you're very involved with local suppliers and operators.
So our mission is to create positive change through the joy of travel. And again, that is that sort of anchoring of purpose and product. And that is what you experience on our trips. So anywhere from 12 to 16 people on a small group adventure. We travel to over 100 countries. We've got almost 900 trips across 7 continents. There will be travelers that travel with you on the trip from all over the world, primarily Australia, the UK, Europe, North America, so US and Canada, but also a heap of other countries. And so you'll turn up on one of our trips, you'll have one of our local leaders. They will take you from A to B and run the itinerary, but they're also the local person that will introduce you and enable interactions with local communities, with local people, and will bring those sort of special, what we call only Intrepid moments. And so that could be, like a beautiful local lunch at someone's family home that you would never be invited into if you weren't with Intrepid and with our local leader. It could be just, having access to a local guide or a local attraction that is only for locals and not for tourists. And so, again, we give access to experiences like that. Our trips range from a week or a couple of weeks, lots of local interaction, local transport, and locally owned and run hotels. And so our accommodation can be really diverse. In India, you can stay at a palace. In Australia, you can sleep under the stars, and everything in between. But it really has to have that can't do this by yourself sort of flavor, and also have that interaction with the community. And so for us, it's about supporting local organizations, local people. It is about empowering locals to run their own businesses, for us to continue bringing people into either into their businesses, into their communities, into their homes. And it is about that connection. We have this big ambition for 2030. A big sort of winning aspiration of that is delivering on this sort of statement, which is the world needs more Intrepid people. And we feel that if there were just more Intrepid people out there who kind of had this sense of, we're probably more alike than different around the world, then the world would be a better place. And so going on an Intrepid trip can just be a holiday, or going on an Intrepid trip can give you this connection with local communities that just makes you look at the world a little bit differently and opens up your mind and your perspective. And so when you come home, you just become a little bit more Intrepid.
I'm so glad you were sharing about this strategy. I was reading online that the sort of ambitious 2030 strategy in commercial terms is around $1.3 billion in revenue, 600,000 customers in the next sort of 6 years, 5 years now. And it's amazing to hear how that then comes to life from a purpose or like a bigger, more meaningful perspective than just the commercial terms. It's a really unique business in terms of your customers are exposed to the guides or the leaders on the trip as a huge part of your brand. I'm sure people come back, they love their guides, so therefore they love the Intrepid experience. How do you sort of maintain great customer experience through the guides when they're different cultures and people in totally different countries? They have their own unique way of doing things. How do you maintain that consistency?
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't easy. And whilst it's consistent to a certain degree, there's definitely this sense of bringing out the best of our leaders, or enabling our leaders to bring the best of themselves and their destinations or their countries and their cities to our customers in the best way that the trip enables them to do. Every trip is really different. I mean, obviously we follow set itineraries, but when I say set itineraries, we enable the leaders. And actually one of the favorite experiences that many of our leaders do is actually end up taking their groups to have lunch or dinner with their family, if they're lucky enough for the itinerary to go through their hometown. And so we do definitely, encourage and I guess inspire that spontaneity kind of approach. Having said that, yes, there is training, there is kind of brand modules, there is, I guess, formula around how we onboard our leaders, how we hope to continuously sort of train them on brand. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of both. How do they get the formal kind of proper training? And how do we just give them the tools for them to be able to be who they are when they're running their trips and actually be, I guess, flexible enough to accommodate the groups. And the groups can be wildly different from one week to another. And whether it be because they've come from totally different parts of the world, or whether they're different in ages, or whether they're just different in what their expectations are of whether they're really like travel, really well traveled or not as well traveled. And so our leaders have the hardest job in the company by far, much harder than the CEO, much harder than any of us in brand and marketing. Our leaders have the hardest job, but they are 100% the best brand ambassadors. And for us to have that chance to connect through our product with a customer, with our brand, it is the leader. And so we do, and we continuously try to sort of elevate the way that we're working from a brand team, how we're engaging and working with our leaders, to make their jobs easier, and also for them to continuously kind of bring the brand to life in their own ways when they run our trips.
Yeah, my parents are avid Intrepiders, and they just got back last week from a trip to Sri Lanka, and my mum was sharing that they obviously had an itinerary and a program, and that's a big reason as to why they chose the trip. But one of the unforeseen and probably most memorable, certainly most soulful experiences was my mum had a photograph of her dad during the war in Sri Lanka on this monument, and the guide, the leader of the tour, went well out of his way to go and recreate the photo with my mum in it from my granddad's war photo. And I think that's just sort of proof in the pudding as to the sort of consistent brand experience that they signed up for, but the authenticity and the flexibility to be able to deliver a really great local experience. He was able to find the area like as a local would, and it would be really hard as a tourist arriving, for a few days. So they're avid, they've done a variety of different Intrepid trips. They personally love the level that you can choose, level of comfort. So you sort of know where you stand from a more, I don't know what you call them, but more basic option through to a more luxury option, and therefore the like-mindedness of the people also on the trip. And they've made amazing friends locally and globally. And I guess that's the sort of opportunity you're untapping with people meeting like-minded people along the trip. Tell me a bit about the loneliness epidemic. I can only assume that part of your success as an organization has been people connecting with other like-minded people in this, continually lonely world. What role, and is an active sort of role that you play from a brand perspective in that, or is that just a byproduct of a great travel product?
No, we absolutely feel, and I guess especially since coming out of the pandemic, that the shared experience of an Intrepid trip is absolutely a solution to some of the bigger kind of, I guess, problems that we're seeing and people are feeling around the world. There is, nothing like a shared experience to make you not feel alone. For people, sometimes joining an Intrepid trip can be really daunting, especially if you're a solo traveller. A heap of our travellers are solo travellers, single travellers. I'd say well over sort of 50 or 60%.
Wow.
And many of them are solo female travellers. And so they're choosing Intrepid for a number of reasons. Obviously, sort of the trust around, safety and, that confidence in traveling. But so many of our customers over the years, not just now, but over the years, choose to travel with Intrepid because they want to travel with like-minded people from all over the world and not just, their home countries. It's not always easy to join on day one. Like day one can be really hard, but throwing yourself in and kind of leaning into that experience, I know that 100% of our customers, that's the brand in me saying 100% of our customers come away feeling like they've had a great connection. They've made some friends. They've met like-minded travelers. And I feel like if Intrepid in some small way can inspire someone to kind of step outside of their comfort zone to join a group that will have like-minded travelers and that will have a leader there to kind of give them that trust and support, then I just think they're going to be, better off for it, and hopefully, find that connection with people that they may not have back home.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming there's probably a lot of great friendships, even marriages, babies, who knows, of
Lots.
people that have
So
met.
many. So many. We've told some great stories. We have actually a lot of people who do reunion trips as well. So the whole group will just do a reunion trip in a new destination, which is lovely.
I'd assume also you've got a lot of solo travelers, but I assume people like quite introvert people perhaps that maybe could book the same destination but perhaps wouldn't expose themselves to the same experiences or meeting people would get a lot from being in a cohort and sort of facilitated with a guide.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's a really good point. We definitely don't only have extroverts on our trips. In fact, really different. And we've done some really good psychographic work on the Intrepid Traveler over the last year or so. And it's actually a real mix of introverts and extroverts. There just has to be this kind of, I guess, little sense of, feeling excited or kind of comfortable enough to connect with other travelers. That's all you need. You just need to think, okay, I just want to connect. You don't have to go full on. We have the opportunity for our single travelers to book single rooms, so they don't even have to share rooms. You can share rooms with others, but there is this kind of really nice kind of lean in during the day, have a single room at the end of the day. And so these trips are not designed just for extroverts. There is this really beautiful opportunity for people to kind of step outside of their comfort zones if they are introverts.
I guess you're just asking for them to have some sort of openness, which you would hope so if they were at the point of booking.
Exactly.
Tell me about that psychographic research. What led you there to undertake it and what have you found that's been interesting?
So prior to the pandemic, we didn't look at the health of our brand. Post-pandemic, when we really leaned in and I would say that we really kind of shifted gear into being sort of a brand-led organization, we invested in brand health tracking, and we now once a quarter do brand health surveys and get quarterly insights, which I, again, as a word of advice for other brand marketers, if you can invest even really at a low level in some sort of brand health measurement, it's been so valuable for us, not only in, I guess in a way, sort of elevating brand and the conversation of brand within the full organization, all the way up to the C-suite, our CEO and our chairman, all the way through to our salespeople and our leaders, is being able to talk confidently about our brand health, and the insights that we're seeing from those surveys has been really, really powerful for us. What we saw in our first year of Brand Health Insights, so we've gone on, a bit of a journey over the last sort of 12 to 18 months where we've decided to introduce a new brand positioning. It's probably the final piece of the puzzle, and most brands will have done this all at once. But given we did the brand refresh project during the pandemic, we are kind of catching up, and this is the last piece of the puzzle in our brand platform. As part of that brand positioning, we've done a heap of work on audience segmentation. We've done a heap of work on brand voice, brand identity, and ultimately sort of that hero brand positioning piece. The psychographic work that we did, going back to the original question, was really around audience segments. We kind of felt like we knew our customers, and ultimately we did. And we definitely did within our regions. And so our great marketing teams within each of our regions had a really strong understanding and deep understanding of who their customers were in each of their regional areas. What we didn't, though, have is a global view. And so the psychographic work that we did was identify 6 core audience segments for the Intrepid Traveler globally. And now we're using those audience segments as a way to really prioritize our marketing, especially performance, but also ensure that whilst there are 6, that we have some prioritization in which audience segments we're focusing on.
And so I'm assuming now the journey is to track the brand performance over time, diving deeper into those sort of personas or the 6 different audience segments. What is utopia? What is sort of true success to you?
Part of the audience segmentation is also a connection strategy, which is pretty simply exactly what it says. How are we connecting to these audiences, and strategically thinking about why, when, and how are those connection points really ensuring that we're putting our budget, our focus, and our prioritization in the right places. The big thing around the connection strategy, and I guess the audience segments, is that they're definitely not different to the travelers that we have now, but that identifying of them is really important, and that they're not all traveling now. And so it's this really nice journey of what are we doing now to slowly but surely bring them into the community and not have those short-term expectations that they're already converting today or tomorrow. And so this really nice kind of short and long-term, I guess, journey of the audience segmentation. And audience segmentation sounds kind of really heartless because actually it's just a community of travelers. But, it will drive what product we're creating, how we're creating that product, what innovation we're bringing into our product so that we actually have something for everyone in this community and customer group.
Incredible. And how have you structured your local and global marketing team around that? Do you have a short-term sort of performance-focused team and then other long-term brand building, or give me a bit of flavour around that?
We have a great marketing structure. It is a little bit hybrid and a little bit regional and global, as I mentioned. We have a global performance team led by our GM of Global Marketing, and we partner with a really great media agency over in the UK who looks after all of our paid performance for all of our regions. But our marketing teams regionally are absolutely kind of laddering up into that strategy as well. And so we prioritizing sort of 3 of our segments in each of our performance plans for 2025. And then we're just about to kick off some high risk, high reward that our global team will be managing. We'll kind of cover the budget because it is a little bit more risky. Our regional teams are very, very connected and engaged with our daily, weekly, monthly sales targets. And so we don't want to kind of mess with that great, strong, deep strategy that we know works. But we want to try some new high risk, high reward connections that we haven't done before. And so that is identifying one of the audience segments in one region and really looking at potentially just 1 or 2 new connection platforms and going, okay, great, let's go and see, does this work? Hopefully it does. What can we learn from it? And then how can we slowly kind of roll it out? So there's definitely short term, I guess, to a certain degree, the 3 priority segments that each of the regions are focusing on that are a little bit different. We know them really well already. We know what platforms work and convert. And now we're going, okay, great. So if we were looking at not one of the priority segments, how do we start seeding that so that as we move into 2030, we've got some really strong learnings so that by that time, we are really rolling out that full connection strategy.
Amazing. In the last episode with Tony Westlake at Big Red Group, she was talking about adrenaline, for example, when you jump out of a plane and you have this amazing experience, you want to tell everyone about it because you've sort of experienced it. But then when it comes to marketing, the challenge is like, how do you share that story when someone's not yet experienced it? I would assume it's the same for Intrepid trips. People come back just sort of raving. How do you harness that from a marketing perspective? What's your journey been around the role of storytelling?
Yeah, we're exactly the same in that feeling of, I guess, that experience that you have and that feeling of emotion, that emotional connection you have when you travel, you can't put on a billboard or you can't put into, even though our copy is great, our messaging's really good, our, visual identity is really strong, it doesn't do anything in building that connection. So we have the same challenge. And again, I think, as we kind of came out of the pandemic, one of the things we really leaned into is, becoming more of a storytelling sort of brand or, looking at those opportunities of talking about those experiences, really connecting with our customers for our customers to be telling us those stories. And interestingly, our VP of PR and social, he a couple of years ago kicked off TikTok and for Intrepid, and actually our strategy for, I think, what would have been probably the first year or 2 was stories told by our customers only, not stories told by Intrepid. We've got the Good Times, which is a blog platform. We have the Good Times magazine, which is a little print magazine that we create. We've got our social channels. We are, really doing a lot in our video space, and will continue to really prioritize video in 2025, which probably every brand is, because everyone wants more video. But trying to kind of get those stories and connect with our customers for them to tell those stories is so important for us. Bringing to life an Intrepid experience is the best way to convert a new customer. We do actually have a brand within Intrepid, which is our Urban Adventures. And so it's a product within our portfolio, which is day trips. And so we're trying to really look at how we use Urban Adventures as a marketing tool. Because if you can go and have an urban adventure experience with Intrepid, you're getting the bite-size experience. And then hopefully that will inspire you and motivate you to book a multi-day trip, but also looking at new ways how we can bring a little taste of Intrepid to inspire someone to travel with us.
Thinking back to the pandemic and how pivotal it was for you as a business, how did you land on your brand purpose work that you've taken forward? Like, what is it and what does it look like to you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, purpose has kind of been at the heart of Intrepid since day one. And actually, the experience that the two co-founders had when they first traveled together, which was the inspiration and motivation to start Intrepid when they came back from their journey, was all about giving back to the communities, giving back to the places that we travel. And so, they continued to build itineraries and build the product around that formula. We were one of the first business to hire a responsible travel manager as well back many, many years ago. And so even just like those little things around being the first, we were at the time in 2018 the world's largest travel B Corp, and continue to successfully grow and increase B Corp score year on year. And so for us, that continuously drives us forward, all the way to do what we do behind the scenes. So our B Corp really drives our approach to supply chain, and B Corp in particular really anchors us in this feeling that, business can be a force for good, and that by aligning with B Corp methodology and really striving to improve our B Corp score every time we're certified makes us a better business, whether it be customer facing within the way that we run our product or create our product, or behind the scenes. And it is all about, I guess, an equal weighting across all of our stakeholders. And one of those stakeholders obviously is the planet as well.
So leading on from that, tell me a bit about the Intrepid Foundation you mentioned at the start.
Yeah. So the Intrepid Foundation was started in 2002 from memory. And the foundation's reason for being is a vehicle to ensure that when we say that we're giving back to communities, that we are. It is really about looking at a number of different initiatives, whether it be about women's empowerment around the world, whether it be around reducing poverty, whether it be enabling communities to find work and to ensure their livelihoods. We have many projects in our portfolio, and we will either run fundraisers to support them, or we will look at ways that we can visit, say, an organisation on one of our trips where our customers will have lunch or dinner or have an opportunity to give back while they're on the ground. So it's both sort of, I guess, customer facing, but also behind the scenes. And last year, our target for TIFF donations was 2 million. And this year, it will increase again. It's a real passion for many people who work for Intrepid, and it is that vehicle to give back.
When you're thinking back on your career as a marketer at different stages and different chapters of your growth, what are some of the bigger bets you've taken, and how have they sort of paid off?
Look, I've had an amazing career, from, thinking I was going to be an artist to kind of finding my way into the travel industry, which, again, as I said earlier, I couldn't have written the script better. I feel really grateful for the opportunities I've been given, in particular here at Intrepid, but many of the other organisations I've worked at as well. I kind of know the educated way of marketing and of brand, and continuously will read and listen to podcasts and, keep learning and keep digesting what's happening out in the world of marketing and brand. But I think many of the bigger bets that I've taken are the ones that I've taken with my gut or kind of on a hunch. And I'm lucky because I've worked here for such a long time. I often say that if there was anyone kind of representing the brand, I've been here on and off since 2001, that I have that ability to kind of go with my gut. And so whether it be, doing a full rebrand during the pandemic, I mean, obviously supported by some really great people around me, but taking those hunches, like putting new brand campaigns out there where, we can't always measure them. And I think just going with your gut, when you know something feels right, I think always works.
Amazing. What do you think about the future of marketing for good? And not at all that people are doing good to market, but the fact that being a purpose-led and sort of, B Corp and having a foundation and definite sort of proof points, but now you're sort of, I guess, evolving to talk about it more. What do you think about the future of marketing for good?
Yeah. Look, I'm really excited about the future. I think it's hard. And I think it's really good to be honest. It's hard and it will increasingly become harder. And whether that's because it's super competitive or whether it's because there is an element of greenwashing that is out there that we're, and myself in particular, we're super conscious of, is that it's the future is about how do you get the right message to the right customer at the right time for it to feel like it's adding value to them. Representing our purpose was not at the forefront of our marketing. It is now, and I hope that continues. But, we'll kind of dial up and dial down on certain different areas of our purpose strategy and the stories that we want to tell with our customers at different times. I think being really authentic and being really conscious of what we're saying and how we're saying it is just bare minimum and really integral. And we've learned that over the last couple of years and we'll continue to learn that. I think the future of marketing is staying educated in that space. And so for all marketers out there, knowing and educating yourself and kind of learning from others, whether it be good learnings or kind of learning from where things went wrong, is really essential. And I think that knowing what customers want to connect with as well. So we often, and years ago, I'd say this a lot, we throw a heap of messages out at our customers and we just, hope that they just take what they want. And I think for us, we're becoming much more strategic in where are we kind of leaning in? Where do we know our customers want to learn more? And where do we know that they don't? And where it's not part of their decision making, especially in the beginning, prior to their first travel experience. After people have traveled with Intrepid, they definitely want to learn so much more about the Intrepid Foundation and B Corp and all of our purpose initiatives. But in the beginning, let's not throw it at them because actually that's not necessarily the biggest part of their decision making to travel with Intrepid. So how do we make it kind of a bit of a pick and mix, like our customers can kind of find what they're looking for without us kind of screaming at them? So I think the future will be, we need to be better targeted. I think we need to be really educated and really stay on the pulse of what's happening out there in the world of environmental and sustainability marketing. And for me, I'm really keen on how we lean into where we shine, which is around community engagement with our leaders. We have such great networks and so many of our Intrepid people are in our core destinations around the world. So, being able to talk about those communities and the interactions we're having is, where I see us moving into the future.
How are consumer travel preferences changing in recent years? What are people looking for now?
I mean, it's always changing. And I think, if I think back to years and years ago, it was probably the same. When I first started at Intrepid in 2001, we were adventure travel, but the definition of adventure travel was so different back then. It was like considered quite hardcore. Fast forward to 2025, we're mainstream. We are cultural immersion. We are adventurous in the sense of adventure, not necessarily, like hardcore adventure activities. Cycling trips, hiking trips are definitely trending. And top destinations that are always or have been trending for some time now, Morocco, Vietnam, but now we're seeing Pakistan and some new destinations coming in. People are definitely looking for, what we call the not hot list. So whereas some of the places that they can go to
That's awesome.
avoid over tourism. We're obviously as an organisation very conscious of over tourism, and how do we become part of the solution, and how are we the solution versus part of the problem. And so the not hot list that we released last year, and we do on an annual basis, is an area that our customers are really leaning into, because, you know, if they're well travelled, or even if they're not well travelled, they definitely don't want to go somewhere where there are hordes of travellers surrounding them, and then you don't have that Intrepid experience. Greenland is looking hot this year in a not hot way. And so new destinations, and I think definitely just that active, mindful, get out in nature is something that we're seeing a lot of come through.
I've noticed a huge shift amongst friends in recent years, just thinking about dinner party conversations and, you know, people wanting to experience things for the first time and have a positive impact with like-minded people. And I think you've got such a great product and brand right at the center of all those, sort of make it easy for people to explore and activate perhaps a side or an experience that they might not have done just by themselves. Looking at the next, sort of looking forward, what can people expect from the Intrepid brand?
I mean, we've got huge ambitions between now and 2030. But from a brand perspective, for me, it's, whilst I hate saying this, it's doing more. I really feel it's like capturing the momentum we've had over the last couple of years. Last year, we did some really big global brand campaigns. We launched a book. We kind of did a whole lot of new things. And so we'll do that again this year, sort of more is more. We'll launch some new things, really look at new ways of bringing our brand to life and connecting with audiences at times perhaps that they're not expecting. So it's not necessarily just when they're in the market for travel. So that dreaming inspiration stage is really exciting for me. And then that consistency of just being out there. And I think we've learned a lot. And again, another piece of advice, which is not easy to do, especially with small budgets, is how do you just have this consistency throughout the year and this opportunity to connect with customers, even if they're not traveling? How do you just stay relevant? And that, again, is not necessarily with deals, because if they're not traveling, they're not looking for a deal. So what are some of those components? And that's what we've been exploring. What are some of those components in kind of like that within customers' life stages, lifestyles, I should say, that we can continuously connect with them. So big brand campaigns are coming. We've, launching our new brand positioning, which is really exciting. Some new, brand voice, dialing that up, looking at some big activations within our regional marketing teams as well. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel this year, but I think we're going to take some big bets, and hopefully lots of people will see Intrepid out there in new and exciting ways.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, the Intrepid journey. It's been such a pleasure unpacking it with you, and can't wait to see all the new brand positioning in market.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Lindsay. I really enjoyed that. Appreciate it.
What I loved most about Natalie's story was how the Intrepid brand has managed to scale across geographies, regions, religions, people, to bring a consistent brand experience that's relevant to the host, but that's also true to the Intrepid Travel brand. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do.